Welcome to another SME Media webinar. Our topic today is transforming analytics into action, and our sponsor today is ShopVue. Hello, I'm your host, Alan Rooks, Editor-in-Chief of Manufacturing Engineering Magazine, which is published by SME Media. I'd like to introduce the presenters for today's webinar, Steve Cascio, Chief Customer Officer for ShopVue, and Matthew Radford, General Manager of Windsor Mold Group. A graduate of the University of Maine, Steve Cascio has 20 years experience in the enterprise software industry. With a deep sales and services background, he's responsible for all go-to-market efforts, including sales, marketing, and alliances at ShopVue. Our second presenter, Matthew Radford, has extensive IT and operations experience in both automotive and aerospace manufacturing. So let's get into today's topic. When it comes to analytics, industrial organizations have a long way to go. The main question many organizations ask is, how can you put your data to work toward transforming your shop floor? There's been a 52% increase in industrial companies with a formal analytics program in the past 2 years, but increases in analytics capabilities haven't had much of an impact on operations performance. Challenges still stand in the way of making analytics initiatives yield results. Steve and Matt will discuss how to make sure you're putting all your data to work for your organization. A few housekeeping items before we start. During the presentation, you'll be able to ask questions using the Q&A box that appears on the right-hand side of your screen. Time permitting, your questions will be answered following the presentation. If time runs out before we can get to all the questions, we will make sure the answers are emailed to you. We could run long and go past the top of the hour. If we do, we hope you can remain with us. If you can't, you'll receive an email later telling you how you can view the entire presentation. And if you experience any audio or visual difficulty during the live presentation, please let us know via the Q&A app. Also, if you have questions about any other aspects of our webinars, please email me at arooks@sme.org. And with that, Steve, please take it away.
Alan, thank you so much. I appreciate the introduction, and welcome everybody. Thank you for taking some time today. I'll get started again. I'm Steve Cascio. I'm the Chief Customer Officer here at CAI Software and ShopVue. My goal for today's session really are two things. One, I want to bring information that is thought-provoking, that makes you think about how you can apply some of these concepts to your business and to your operations. And hopefully we share something new. Every time I go to one of these sessions, whether I'm a participant or a presenter, I'm always trying to find a nugget of information that I can use and take back to my company and make it better as a whole. So if many of you may know LNS Research and Mesa International, in 2020 they wrote an excellent spotlight document called Analytics That Matter. And that document will ultimately be the source for a lot of the information we're looking at in today's presentation, along with some of the input from Matthew Radford of Windsor Mold Group. So before we get into that, Matt, if you would take a moment, just a quick introduction of yourself, that'd be great.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt Radford. I work for Windsor Mold Group in the capacity of General Manager of both our tooling division, which manufactures large, complicated, deep bill of material injection molding tools, and also the other side of the business that runs the parts in a repetitive, high volume, tier 1 automotive fashion. Aside from my operations responsibilities, I also run the IT department across all 9 of our manufacturing facilities, and I'm the Windsor Mold champion of big data and digital factory initiatives across our entire enterprise. So Windsor Mold has been around 50 years as of next year, so we're right on the doorstep of that celebration, which is exciting. And we have a heavy presence in automotive, and we've just started diversifying into some non-automotive as well, which is also exciting.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. Now we're going to hear more from Matt in just a little bit about his experience with ShopVue and ShopVue Analytics and his overall analytics strategy. So Matt, we'll come back to you in just a little bit. Thank you so much. As we look at the organization, I think Alan put a couple of percentages out there in terms of companies that are actually engaged in industrial automation and whatnot. You're going to see a lot of statistics today. And I think the statistics really paint a picture of opportunity. If if you look at this slide, there's a lot of numbers, a lot of fuzziness, but ultimately it's what critical analytics are you overlooking? What parts of your business could you spend more time on to get meaningful insights to help drive operational efficiencies? So, LNS in their research, when they looked at 14% of the folks that they surveyed that big data analytics is the single most overhyped technology in the manufacturing industry. So for those of you that are over the hype or sick of, questionable analytics based on questionable data, you're in the right place. If you're ready to have access to the right data at the right time and drive business decisions, you're in the right place as well. So during the session, we're going to talk a lot about practical examples that make massive amounts of data work for you. And I think that's what's critical is ultimately, how do you put that data to work for you? Typical plant today generates over a terabyte of data every day. That number is expected to raise by a factor of 5 to 10 in the next 5 years, which means there is a massive amount of information that is going across your factory or your operations that has meaningful information that can help you be better. And a lot of customers, what we're going to find, you'll see a poll question here in a few minutes, folks, and we're going to ask you to participate there. But manual processes, spreadsheets, travel packets, etc., those days have got to go by the board. It's time to leverage the information and leverage the systems that are out there to help drive meaningful change. So when we look at things like LNS, they find that manufacturers are tracking a wide range of metrics, from on-time deployment to OEE to inventory turns. The key here is you can't and you shouldn't track every metric. The best way to reach continuous improvement ultimately is to be very selective. Look at the things that make the biggest impact on your business and track those to the most granular level of detail possible. Make sure the measurements that you're capturing are important, that they can use as inputs into new analytics as a key starting point. The end goal is not simply to have data on hand, but ultimately take the data that you're harvesting and put it to good use to improve your processes. And ultimately, that's what we're going to focus on here today. So as you can see, 80% of organizations that have an analytics initiative don't have an analytics strategy. During my tenure at SAP over the last 10 of the last 15 years, I found that to be the case quite a bit, right? There's a lot of siloed information out there. There's a lot of point solutions that are capturing information and data for that specific purpose, but that's sort of the end of the road for that particular place. So really the focus has been on the last few years around predictive analytics, meaning companies have been using the data to try to predict better outcomes, more outcomes from the information that they gather. What we're seeing now is a shift toward prescriptive analytics, taking the data to make a plan for process improvement. And that is a meaningful change. That means we're using the information to plan and be prescriptive in our activities. And I think that's a shift just in the analytics realm over the last couple of years. So let's talk about a couple of things. So leading manufacturers, what are they doing to handle their data? As you can see here, leaders in the space have really started a number of processes since 2018. 2018 being the red bar on the left, and the blue bar is 2020. If you're not keeping up with areas like levels of industrial analytics and sophistication, how do you use them in your enterprise? Many customers are not using them at all, right? So they don't have any plans or any strategies to put those in place. Some are using it as a descriptive model, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. And that's where we're trying to see, what are our customers doing today? What do they plan to be doing 2 to 3 years from now to improve the data utilization across their organization to make better decisions and ultimately impact your bottom line of your business? So we look at what roles in your organization have access to the data when they at the time when they have to make decisions. Ultimately, it's IT and it's operations. Does that mean the rest of the organization doesn't have access to it? If so, how do we get access to that information? So we look at the significant growth in data utilization across your organization, from the C-suite all the way down to your supervisors or your operators. It's incredibly important that we figure out how to get the right information to the right person at the right point in time. And ultimately, that's what we want to do from an operational perspective. And to do that, you really have to have an effective data model. That data model is going to really help spark your digital transformation efforts, and ultimately, systems like your MES platforms, your PLM systems, all of the automation that you've got in the plant. To have a common data model to weave through them is going to ultimately allow you to have the most success and the biggest impact on your organization in the manufacturing space. So when we look at siloed data, we look at standalone systems, how do we get that data out of those systems to put them into a big data strategy, whether it's a mashup or what have you? So at this point, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask that you participate. It's a simple yes/no answer. And we're going to give you about 30 seconds. So if each of you that are here today would take a moment to respond to the following question. Do you rely on multiple data sources, multiple reporting tools in order to gain visibility necessary to meet your operational objectives? I'll give you about 25 to 30 seconds to answer that, and then we'll be able to share the poll results with you in a short amount of time. And I ask to think about your specific departmental initiatives as they might compare to your broader organizational objectives. See some answers coming in. Rolling in, we got about half the audience so far. Right. About 10 more seconds. Over half the audience, excellent. All right, why don't we go ahead and we'll share the results. So yes, that's not surprising, right? That is unfortunately sort of a little bit of where we are in the world in terms of manufacturing, sort of being at the end of the investment lane sometimes. So yeah, we do have, I would say 80+% of our customers are in the same boat. So the numbers here do not surprise me. It's pretty consistent with what we see with our customers. And ultimately, it's very consistent with what industry experts find in the industry. So while IT and operations and supervisors all have a hand in using shop floor data, there is a danger, largely ignored, that maintaining separate data sets in different departments across different systems. I mean, we run into this every day. We've got our ERP reporting, we've got our PLM reporting, our quality management, our MES reporting. And those reports may be great for the audience, the specific audience, the intended audience for use of those applications, but is that information making the difference that it can make for your organization? Ultimately, collecting the data is only half the problem. Getting the data together and harmonized is even. We work a lot with our customers to understand how we can drive impact across their manufacturing processes. And when I think about some of the work that we've done with Bob Hansen, who's the CEO of Hutchinson Body Sealing Systems here in North America, Bob has really been at the forefront of driving automation and data-driven decisions for the past 5 years with us. He's pushed us to really build meaningful dashboards for his organization that ultimately helped him drive significant improvements in yield by improving monitoring of his production and quality and process controls. He's been a huge advocate of data-driven decisions for years, and his organization is now starting to see the results tenfold in terms of his ROI. Ultimately, the top barrier to driving successful analytics is trust, right? It's being able to trust the data, making sure you're getting the right data. So in this particular illustration, you can see how we can gather raw data from a variety of sources, from people, from machines, from processes, right? Variety of inputs where we're collecting that information to feed it into your data strategy. So by using a tool like ShopVue, frankly, which is an MES platform, we allow our customers ultimately to get fast, friendly, foolproof information in the system quickly. Right? Data collection is optimized in the fewest touches possible. It's validated. Ultimately, it's going to help feed a significant amount of reporting benefits and visualization across your plants. And this really is a great example of industrial automation wrapped up in a single slide, right? Data feeding from a number of sources, machines talking to other machines, et cetera. This is how leaders are building their plants for automation today. So what analytics are leading organizations using, and how can you be a leader as well? Ultimately, and this actually dovetailed very, very well into our customer advisory board meeting we had in 2019, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But ultimately, the set of dashboards across manufacturers are not all that different. Right? We're all trying to measure some similar things. So if we look at some of the top analytics that customers are running, on-time delivery, right? It's a critical element of how you're measured, what your success is, and what your bottom line is. Net profit margins, overall equipment effectiveness, and overall labor efficiency. Those tend to be the top four that we typically see our customers looking to measure in granular detail. And ultimately, we want to be able to provide this information in a number of different sliced and diced ways that you can use it across your departments and your organization. We actually did a study in 2019 where we brought 30 customers in for a 2-day customer advisory board meeting, and we asked for their feedback on our analytics strategy. The overwhelming response was, don't go it alone. Don't build your own dashboards. Use a proven BI platform that's in the marketplace today to accelerate value for us, your customer, so we can get better information more quickly and share it in a better way across our organizations. And we ultimately did that. We'll talk a little bit about ShopVue Analytics here. Here's a great example of one of our customers, their machine overall equipment effectiveness dashboard. Ultimately, it is driving their ability to make decisions, right? They're running, this is from one of the largest machine shops in the country, and they've found incredible opportunity to improve how their machines are running and when they're available, and to improve their machine uptime. So it's talking with data. Once they had the data, they now had visibility into where their challenges were, and they were able to address them more proactively. Ultimately, return a huge ROI on that investment. This is a good example of an on-time completion. You know, a lot of people ask, what does on-time completion mean? It's different for everybody, but the truth is it manufacturing time alone? No. Do you have to consider idle time? Yes. Do you have to consider shipping time? Potentially. So ultimately, establishing what those metrics are, and then being able to visualize your performance against those metrics is what's. And Bob did a really good job here with us as well a couple of years back. And his vision for his for his plant, his MES platform was always going to be the neural network of his environment. It was going to be about getting the right data in time to make informed decisions so that his operators, his supervisors, all had very, very visual ways of seeing their performance and how they were performing at that point in time. As opposed to looking back and saying, how did we do yesterday? He knew at the point of, at that moment of time how well they were doing. So let's talk a little bit about how you can transform your organization, not just spin the wheels with more tools. We see that a lot too. Ultimately, we want to find ways to drive benefit for you. So build your team, right? Make sure that you've got the right team from IT, from engineering and operations, and from your executive team. Make sure there's an executive sponsor. You can see here a little bit about this, again, based upon some research done by LNS Research, who the industrial leaders are and who the followers are. Industrial leaders tend to bring in a better cross-section or a broader cross-section from their organization. So they're getting input from each element of the business that's ultimately going to be responsible for delivering on results. I think only 54% of shop floor supervisors have the data that they need to make proactive decisions. Things like being able to change metrics for on-time delivery, capacity utilization, OEE, OLE, you name it. Putting the tools in the hands of the people that can make the biggest difference is what's incredible, and that's what helps leaders, the industrial transformation leaders, get incredible performance out of tools like these. So what is ShopVue Manufacturing Analytics? Ultimately, ShopVue helps solve the problem in a number of ways. So as a manufacturing execution system, we're helping customers manage their people, their processes, their orders, and their machines. We also want to deliver a set of KPIs with ShopVue Analytics that makes sense. So a few slides ago, you saw a number of different metrics that people are measuring. We pulled our customer advisory board. We came up with 15 out-of-the-box dashboards that 80% of manufacturers are going to use in some shape or form. So we wanted to build something not in a tunnel, not in a silo, right, where we as a development company were just building it out. We got a lot of customer input from our customer advisory board team members, and the results have been really remarkable over the last year. If we look at, a lot of people ask us, why did you select Click? Click is our partner. We built all of our ShopVue Analytics on. We did a really exhaustive search. We worked with 5 different companies to evaluate their capabilities, some of which are on this Magic Quadrant and others who are not. And ultimately, we settled on Click because, A, they really understood our space. They're in a number of our customers, and they have a really flexible framework that we can help quickly extend data sheets and reports out to our customers. They build these out-of-the-box reports very, very quickly. So ultimately, why do you need a production-oriented analytics? Ultimately, you need to see what's going on in your plant so you can gain visibility into the factory. You need to understand why that's happening so that you can then predict and create actionable insights that drive improvement. Remember I mentioned earlier the prescriptive analytics as opposed to predictive analytics. That's helping you move the needle just a little bit further. So how do we measure the value of production? This is always a great question. So ultimately, ShopVue Analytics is going to help you visualize critical data being generated through your IoT platforms, your MES platform, or other supporting manufacturing systems. It's going to give you the widespread visibility that you need ultimately to make the right decisions at the right point in time. A lot of people talk about Industry 4.0, industrial automation, etc. Most industry analysts and most industry experts will tell you having the right foundational systems in place are incredibly important. Manufacturing execution system or manufacturing operations management systems are critical to that. They often get overlooked in favor of manual processes, and that leads to suspect data. So getting the right foundations in place is a critical step. And as we're going to move over to Matt Radford here in just a moment, some folks may say, what is ShopVue? And I know we're talking about analytics and driving business intelligence, driving insights. ShopVue is a proven and reliable, trusted MES platform. We help our customers manage their labor. We help our customers move into the digital factory, so getting rid of paper travelers, having direct machine interfaces. We provide full traceability. We've got our digital instructions or electronic work instructions that help spoon feed your operators through a process based upon data that they're being fed, and ultimately provide that analytics platform that you can trust and use that information to either show your MES operators and supervisors how they're doing, or take that data from ShopVue and through our APIs, bring it into your own big data platform, whether it's Click or something else, and use it as part of your data mashup and your data strategy. So with that, I'm going to shift over to Matt. A quick intro here. Matt's been a long-time ShopVue customer. As you can see, he is a comprehensive user of the platform, really drives a lot of change through his organization. We're very happy to have Matt join us today and talk about some of his organizational opportunities and things that they've done. Matt, do you want to talk a little bit about, I would say we're going to focus mostly on your analytics strategy, but I think some of the digital instruction work we did really laid the groundwork for your Industry 4.0 initiative.
Yep, for sure. So digital work instructions were really the key to us being able to eliminate, paper travelers, disconnected inspections, things that would create this production package of data that was disparate and physical in a lot of cases, across multiple sites. And so being able to take something like digital work instructions and bake those inspections in, add visual indicators, pictures, add sub-steps to the operation, were extremely valuable to us. What it did ultimately is it really helped us in an unexpected way, which is in the planning process, because we could take all of that complexity out of our ERP operation steps and have a much consolidated view of a routing, but have a lot of detail in the digital work instructions to give the people on the floor, how to do things, what order to do things, track the way that they do things, and record all of that valuable quality and production data without impeding the ERP, which for us had been an issue in the past. So that really was kind of the last step for us to remove a lot of the paper that followed our parts around the plant. And then in 2021, and like Steve said, we are a long-time ShopVue customer. I've used ShopVue in 2 different companies, actually. Visualizing the data that you're collecting was always a little bit of a challenge. There was a ton of valuable information in the system, very difficult to visualize and put line side or in a supervisor's hands so they can drive actionable decisions. So ShopVue Analytics, when that came out, and us being a manufacturing company, it just made a lot of sense and aligned with our strategy to get analytics and turn it loose on all of our manufacturing data that we've started to accumulate across our sites. And that includes the ability to do what we couldn't have done very easily before, because we do have 9 separate ShopVue servers, but using ShopVue Analytics, we're able to actually consolidate and aggregate a lot of that manufacturing data and bring it up so operations managers for the US, for Canada, for Mexico, they can look at all of their facilities' production data in a single snapshot and see how their businesses are performing as a whole, as opposed to having to go into each individual site and figure out what's happening and where do I need to focus. This has also become our line-side display tool. So in our component manufacturing division, where we do our high-volume, repetitive Tier 1 automotive stuff, we run OEE dashboards in real time on the shop floor at just about every workstation that we have a ShopVue console at. So it's really given our operators and our supervisors access visually, which was extremely important because crystal reports and SSRS reports are not always the most visual. It really gave us the ability to see at a glance how a cell is performing and isolate what the issue is. Is it people? Is it process? Is it production? Is it machine? And it allowed our supervisors to be mobile, so they can carry around like a rugged tablet. They can see how their cells are performing. They can also, approve their attendance. They can schedule machines if they need to schedule machines. They have access to their email, so they are almost entirely mobile now in the sites where we have a lot of ShopVue in place. So what you're seeing here is one of the first dashboards that we had asked to be created upon implementing ShopVue Analytics, and this was very valuable to us on the engineer-to-order, long lead time, high complexity side of our business, which is the tooling side. Trending performance data over time across work centers, when you might have at any time 10 to 20,000 work orders moving through the shop independently was a very large administrative challenge. With ShopVue Analytics now, we can see and quickly filter date range, select some dynamic criteria and see how we've been performing. And it takes all of the data in. So we have years of data in the system. And it's extremely fast to say, show me last week, show me year to date, and it's very snappy, and it shows up. So this example here of just something very simple like a days late trend, you can pick a work center or a department and say, how are we doing? Are we actually performing the way that we would intend? And you can see from some of the days late there, we were 57 days early on a product. That's something that we should take into account in the planning process. And so we've really been able to tune our scheduling and planning across this difficult, complex environment by creating a feedback loop using this on-time completion data. So if we see operations or machines that are consistently off the mark, we're able to go back in and adjust our ERP planning parameters to accommodate for it. So this has been one view of the data that's been valuable to us. And here's just another example of on-time completion filtered by department. And you can see early, late, on time, nice and easy. Supervisors, managers, they've gravitated to this. They're able to absorb it very quickly because it is visual. You also have the ability up in the top right corner there to determine what your target is, because for those of us that work in complex manufacturing with high variability and a lot of disruption in the process, depending on what you're making, 90% might not really be feasible. You might be shooting for something like 80 or 70 or even 60 and possibly even lower depending on your commodity. So you're able to adjust what you're looking at, move your target lines with a couple of clicks, and basically present your performance in an area instantaneously for any time period that you've been recording the data. One of my favorite features of ShopVue Analytics and Click is what they call storytelling. And we've basically replaced any kind of PowerPoint presentations or the like by using this feature. So you can go across any of the dashboards that you've created, and I will say that you do have the full power of Click Analytics on your ShopVue data. We are able to modify, create, and develop our own dashboards with everything that you would have with a normal Click implementation. And you can put together from various dashboards little snapshots that can tell a story. So I would do this by department and say, okay, first week of the month, how did we perform? You know, why are we so early? What's the trend look like? And you can do that for OEE. You can do it for inspection data. You can do it for a number of, basically any of the data that you have inside of ShopVue. It's going to read it and display. So that's been very helpful to easily and quickly consolidate data across multiple dashboards and then present it to people. And you don't even need to email it because people can go in and actually look at what you've published inside of ShopVue Analytics. So if you know that every Monday you're going to publish on-time completion reports for a given plant or area, supervisors, managers can just go in, look at the published dashboards or stories and open them up and go to it. So that's been very helpful in quickly putting data together to tell a story about an issue or something that we want to investigate. And I think these following slides are just pretty good examples of different views on the same data. So you can look at it by department again, right? You can look at it by work center. You can look at it by machine. It's pretty powerful to be able to drill into this type of information and start to make business decisions based on it. And I don't have any examples in here of what we're using for OEE, but similar to what Steve showed earlier from Hutchinson, we're using the out-of-the-box ShopVue Dashboard, and it was a very low maintenance install, and because it's sitting on top of our structured ShopVue data, it just started working as soon as we put it in. So we had visual dashboards up on televisions within, you know, a week and a half of implementing ShopVue Analytics. So again, we really struggled in the past with being able to visualize data and use the data to give the people at the point of manufacture that need to make the decisions quickly the ability to do so. And that's really where we've seen our biggest impact. So downtimes have come down, scrap parts have come down, you know, our on-time completion of orders and operations and complete jobs has improved fairly dramatically, being able to implement that kind of closed loop feedback for scheduling. Yeah, so all in all, it was a great fit for what Windsor Mold was moving towards in the digital factory realm. And for us, because as Steve showed, we do use all of the modules in varying degrees across our facilities, it was very powerful to all of a sudden have that visualized and on people's desktop and in the hands of the decision makers. So that's our story. I believe that was my last slide.
Matt, could you take a second before we wrap things up and just talk a little bit about the change management, maybe at whether it's the operator level or the supervisor level, now that you've got these tools in place? Have you seen fundamental shifts in their approach to their day-to-day?
Absolutely. When it takes you half of your shift to figure out what happened yesterday on a group of machines, there was a lot of gut feelings. There was a lot of perception and not a lot of facts, not a lot of data. Now that we are able to just bring up any amount of data that we want to see and instantaneously graph it or show how things performed, we've really moved to more of a data-focused discussion as opposed to, well, I think what happened last week on this machine was this. Now we know exactly what happened on that machine and can very quickly get to the information. That's driven quicker corrective actions, better mean time between failures on our equipment, more uptime and utilization, higher efficiencies, better operator utilization, which was also an issue for us as we were running a large amount of indirect. So we were able to even create dashboards that Pareto out our indirect across sites as well. So yeah, we've been very fortunate to have ShopVue Analytics, and it really has changed the way that our shop floor level managers and operators address things that are an issue, because it's no longer what they think, it's what it is based on what the data says.
That is a great example of data-driven decisions, right? So Matt, thank you really very much for supporting us today and participating in today's call. We're going to hand this back to Alan now to run through the Q&A session. So Alan, are you back?
I'm here. And
right.
Thank you, Steve and Matt, for your insight into transforming analytics into action.
No problem.
As Steve mentioned, we have received some questions, and we'll try to get to all of them before our time is up. I'd like to remind the audience that you can still ask questions in the Q&A box while we're going through the Q&A session. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask, just please feel free to type it in, and we will get to it with any luck. So let's start with this question. Let's see. Question is, can ShopVue ingest data directly from machines that then feed into KPIs?
It absolutely can. So you may recall one of the slides we showed earlier, the digital factory slide, where information and sensors and bots and machines were all feeding information. We absolutely can through our direct machine interface. We take that data from the machines, and we can ingest that, parse it, and show it in the report. And I'm not sure, Matt, if you're doing that at Windsor just yet, but I know we have a few clients that are really well down that path.
Yeah, we're actually in the middle of a pilot project on that now, using OPC connections into our PLC through Ethernet, sorry. And yeah, we'll be using the ShopVue direct machine interface to pull that data into ShopVue and get real-time yield reporting off of the equipment.
And we see more customers. There's still a lot of cables, a lot of Ethernet cabling that's in those plants just for RFID and or interference, if you will. But that data can be collected wirelessly or through hardware. Either is totally.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for that answer. Our next question is, using ShopVue Analytics, are there some dashboards that are more widely used than others?
Yeah, I would say not all that different than we spoke to earlier. I mean, overall equipment effectiveness is a big one, just because you need to know the health of your operations and try to predict downtime before it happens. Certainly, on-time order delivery is important. On-time order completion, is critically important as well. But when ShopVue helps our customers manage their people, their processes, their orders, and machines, ultimately it's about making sure the equipment's up and running when it needs to be, making sure my labor efficiencies are being met, and ultimately that my orders are being completed. There's several variations of those three, but those would probably be the pillars, if you will, dashboards that most of our customers.
Okay, great. Let's see. Our next question is, how did ShopVue arrive at determining the types of dashboards available within your application?
Okay, that's a great question. I touched on that a little bit earlier. So, for years we had been building our own reports for our customers. Ultimately, when we took a step back and decided to go and partner with a third-party BI platform, Select and Click, we really engaged with our customers. So through our customer advisory board meeting and our user group teams, we basically polled all of them, and we got over 50 responses from a variety of companies and customers. Say what is most important to them. So we did some research first. We basically put together a list of about 25 or 27, I believe, manufacturing-centric dashboards that we thought would have meaningful results for our customers. And we polled them, and we came back, and it was pretty strongly parsed in terms of there were 15 dashboards that people ultimately said that these are the ones that we need or like to have. And we've been building those dashboards over time. We've been building four dashboards per quarter for the past 15 months now. And the full stable of dashboards are now available. That doesn't mean you can't build new dashboards, right? The tool gives you the ability to configure and edit the dashboards that are in there, or build your own custom dashboards if you like. But those are the stable of dashboards that we've arrived at as being out of the box, and again, through an implementation and effort with our consultants, you can.
Okay, great. Our next question is, how flexible is ShopVue in terms of being able to extract data to use with other systems?
I did answer that two ways. Maybe 5 years ago, not so flexible, but today, we selected Click, and really the other tools we looked at as well. We knew it was critical that the data be available to our direct audience, which is the ShopVue user, but also equally available to the non-ShopVue user. So we built our big data interface, which is an API. It allows you to safely and securely extract ShopVue's data. It uses the same approach that we use with Click to deliver that data to whatever BI platform you're choosing. So that API comes with our ShopVue Analytics module, because most of our ShopVue Analytics customers also want that data outside of ShopVue. They want to use it for other data mashup initiatives and overall big data strategies. So very secure, very available, and very.
Well, great. Matt, you've obviously been a customer for a while, but I guess this will go to both of you. If say ShopVue is being used by a new customer, and how do you deal with some of the skepticism that some, say, older people have in a company who've been used to doing it their way for a long time, and suddenly a new system is telling them different things? How do you introduce the product to people at the new site?
Okay, so like I'm sure many other people on the call, change can be hard, especially in legacy organizations that are fairly ingrained with how they do things. Long-term employees, broad age ranges, some younger, some older. The way we handled that and what we found really most appealing when we started looking at ShopVue for Windsor Mold is really just the visual nature of the system itself. It's colorful. The layout is simple. Everything is on one screen. It gives you the flexibility to be able to move buttons around, add buttons, take functions away, change KPIs that are displayed at the operator level. And what we found is, although there's a certain level of skepticism that no matter how you introduce it, it's difficult to get rid of. What we found is people from across the age spectrum in our organization liked the simplicity of it. Even people that were largely pencil and paper driven when it comes to reporting saw the utility of being able to just within one tap of a touch screen or two taps of a touch screen do just about anything that you needed to do. And so it was very easy for us to show the benefit to the user of adopting this change, just because it's user friendly and simple, and that was a big selling point in converting the skeptics for us.
That's great. That's great. So, well, we're getting toward the top of the hour. So maybe to wrap up with this question, what does the future look like for this type of machine analytics? And in the future, will we be able to do this better, faster, quicker, easier, or all of the above?
D, all of the above. I think the future is pretty clear in that respect, Alan. I mean, data is king. Data-driven decisions rule the day every day now. And it's, you're seeing less and less tribal knowledge, less and less I think this, I thought that. People want to know exactly what's happening in their plant at all times, and making data readily available to be consumed in a variety of sources is critical. So that's exactly how we approached our new analytics strategy when we partnered with Click 18 months ago. It's how we're approaching it going forward for virtually everything that we do. So, and I think if you look at the industry analysts out there, LNS Research is a great group that we work with here, and but it could be Gartner, it could be Aberdeen, it could be any of them. They're going to tell you data rules the day, and data makes decisions for how plants need to be run, and support that, and we're very excited to do so.
Just to add to that as well, because we didn't discuss it, and I can see we have a little bit of time. Kind of our next big leap with ShopVue Analytics is using a function called Data Insights, which allows you to basically, ask questions of the data, like what was my OEE last year? And once you have it set up and you have your dependencies correct, it will actually produce an answer. Or you can just click something called Generate Insights that uses AI and machine learning and will suggest things that maybe you should look at. So it's very, very early days for us in that particular realm, but it is a very interesting and appealing function that we feel might open our eyes to issues that we might not be aware of, because as humans, we think we know best, right? So that's an exciting step that we're hoping to take shortly as well.
I know John from our development team, Matt, is excited about that project as well. It's you're one of our first 2 clients to jump into that realm, so we're excited about it. I think it's going to be really valuable for you. Well, I think
that's terrific.
If there's nothing else, that we really appreciate you guys helping us pull this together, and hopefully it was informative and engaging, and we want to thank you for your support.
You bet. And thank you, Steve and Matt, for sharing your knowledge with us today. That was really interesting, and I'm sure our audience got a lot out of it. And speaking of the audience, we'd like to thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this webinar. And any questions that come in after this point or questions that we didn't get to will be passed along to ShopVue, and you can expect a reply via email. The entire webinar will be available for replay by 4 p.m. Eastern Time today, and you can access it by using the same sign-in link that you used earlier. Once again, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us for this SME Media webinar. We hope you found it informative and encourage you to sign in to future SME Media webinars. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.